Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Everyday Millionaire Mindset Matters podcast, where I'm joined by my wife, Olympic mental performance coach, Steffany Hanlon-Francie. In these episodes, Steffi and I have a conversation about the different aspects of what we refer to as Mindset Matters, because we believe that for those who are awake, we are living in and through the most impactful time in history. Your view of the world is the filter for how you will experience the evolution and changing dynamics of it. Our intention is to provide you with ideas, nutritious food for thought, and some tools that you can use to help you in being your greatest self and living your best life. Listen in, enjoy. Steffany, you're back.
I'm back. I missed you, hon.
You're back. Man, has it ever been a busy, I guess several weeks now, been challenging to kind of coordinate to get a show put together. I did the last show on my own. That was hard. I'm not good at monologues. I thought it was a good show, but I'm not a big fan of doing monologues, and it just takes doing it to get good at it. Anyways, we digress. And welcome back. We're here.
Thanks, hon. And I thought you did a great job. And I'm glad you said you missed me at the end because, I was getting a little worried.
Okay. My biggest fan. Okay. So we've got a great show and a great topic. And, again, we keep coming back to the theme for 2024, which is clarity equals velocity. And we're excited that we're launching another workshop that will be in June right here in British Columbia in the beautiful Fraser Valley. But we talk a lot about clarity equals velocity, that being our theme for 2024, as well as think tank and what that means. And we're going to start to unpack that. Now, you've been away because you were at a World Figure Skating Championship in Montreal. So that's cool. In Canada. Doesn't happen enough, but you were there.
Well, it was supposed to happen in 2020, but of course the world blew up in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And so then Montreal Worlds was canceled. But what's interesting about it, I do believe that it happened for a reason. The skaters were ready. Everybody else was ready. The world was ready for Worlds to be in Montreal. They did Skate Canada, ISU, Patinage Quebec, IM. Everybody did a fantastic job in welcoming the world to Montreal. We didn't take it on as we were the hosts, but that's a whole other workshop. But ultimately, having Worlds in our home country was quite amazing, very humbling. To have the world come to us and to be able to present, for example, we had 13 teams in the top 36, and we had 11 teams made it to the top 20, 8 teams in the top 10, and again, 11 in the top 20, which has never happened before. So when we talk about commitment, clarity, equaling velocity, I really think there's a segue here, or some kind of parallel when it comes to what we're doing in the sports world to what we're doing in the business world.
I think every time we have these conversations, we have for 30 years, we've always connected the dots of, I guess, sport and athletes to business and how it translates not only into business, but into life. It's kind of another culture, but ultimately it is a representation, if you will, of what it means to be a top performer in life as well and in business. So that's kind of cool. And I don't want to step over something before I lose track and we get off on a tangent, is the fact that Worlds were here in Canada and your U.S. team won gold, one of your favorite teams, of course, and you're part of that whole connection, and they took a gold. So congratulations on that.
Congratulations. Thank you to Madison Chalk and Evan Bates for winning their second consecutive gold medal at World Championships. Last year we were in Japan, and this year again in Montreal. And, it's never easy to defend a championship. When you think about it, the everyday athlete, like the people that we work with outside of sport, it's not about, always being the best in the world, the top of the podium. It's really about being your best self and that's what I'm so proud of all of these athletes that I'm working with. The top 19 skaters in the world are coming through the Ice Academy Montreal, and it's values-based. It's a values-based environment. Is it perfect? No. Do we screw up sometimes? Absolutely. But when you come back and you are creating and making decisions based on your values, there really is a higher chance to win.
Well, there's something about all of this that I want to bring together, which is, clarity equals velocity. when we look at one of the challenges that we see with people in general, ourselves included, is that sometimes making decisions is very difficult. What you just said was really kind of part of the crux of this conversation, which is when you're making values-based decisions, those decisions become quite a lot easier. But having said that, you say, is it perfect? And is that environment perfect? And no, it's not. But you always have something to come back to center to. In other words, it isn't always chaos. You have moments of time where it comes apart at the seams for any number of reasons, because as we implement, create environments, shift cultures, make decisions, there's a moment in time called chaos. And then we come back to center if we are actually grounded in what that decision represents. So it's all to say this: it's never going to be perfect. It's going to be moments of awesomeness and moments of chaos. But when we have a clear vision and a clear vision based on our values, it's going to come back to center. Now, when we talk about think tank and we consider how many people in this last think tank that we were at, we had couples, and mostly everybody was couples. There was one individual, and that wished he would have brought his wife, but anyways, that's for another think tank. But the point I'm going to make here is this: as much as it was about couples, it was individuals. So in other words, yes, we come together to be two, and that could be a couple, it could be a business partner, it could be whatever, but ultimately we're individuals. You in the skating world are working with couples who aren't necessarily couples. They're business partners, they're athletic partners, but that doesn't mean that they're couples off the ice. In other words, they go to work, they hold hands, they skate, they train together, they do everything together, they act together. And most people, because of the nature of the art of skating and the acting that goes into it, think they're couples, but they're really not. They're individuals. So I wanted to set that kind of broad context up, because now when we come together and we say, okay, well, what has that got to do with the conversation about clarity equals velocity and decision making? That's because in this scenario, whether you're a married couple, a business couple, and or in this case, an athletic couple, you are on your own, working with others, having to make decisions and share that space, and then come together to create a result, a winning result. And that can be, like I say, in business or athletics. And again, so I want you to kind of give me your insights in terms of when you're working with athletes and decision making, how do you kind of coordinate all of that when you're going to have two individuals that may not agree, may have different outcomes that they're working backwards from on a day-to-day basis? I don't know. I'm not sure what the question is, but maybe you can pick it up and go with it anyways.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think the magic of it is that life is a team sport. It really is. And as individuals, if we're not true to ourselves or don't have an inkling of what our values are, it's very difficult to bring ourselves forward to get our needs met and express what our needs are to the person that we're in partnership with, so that they can actually, filter that through their own value system and either get their needs met and then in return help meet our needs. So the communication piece of it when it comes to partnership in ice dance, for example, which is such a microcosm, of life in partnership, because to your point, a lot of the teams that I work with aren't life partners. It may look like it because of the acting and the intimacy and the connection and the clarity that they have in their outcome and their intentions when they're out there. But the truth is, they have an outcome that is shared. It's like I always say with us in our marriage is that I look at our marriage, for example, and our partnership as my responsibility is my relationship to you. Your relationship to me is very different. So there is an us in there, but if we're not clear and we don't have clarity in what it is that we're bringing to the partnership, it's very difficult to say the marriage is responsible for something, or the partnership, or the ice dance couple, or the business relationship. The individual within that partnership is still 100% responsible and accountable to the results. So if I'm not clear on what it is that I'm bringing to the party or what I need, or if I'm not expressing myself fully, which I struggle with sometimes because I do get stuck in my emotions. And sometimes it's hard for you to decipher what it is that I'm asking for. But I always know that that I'm committed to our partnership, to our relationship. So it's not our marriage. I'm committed to my marriage and my partnership to you, and you're committed to your marriage and your partnership to me. So that creates a third thing. And in ice dance, for example, the third thing is the couple. And we create that relationship and that co-creation between the two. And sometimes it's harder when the ice dance couples are a couple, because then there's that emotionality that gets in there, the triggering and all the things that happens when, of course, we're in an intimate relationship, and then try and layer that onto the business relationship partnership, and then try and layer that onto the competition level, and try and layer that onto winning, and layer that on, and the expectations become unbounded.
Mm-hmm.
So what I love about the clarity equals velocity conversation is that it brings the conversation back to self, and I become responsible for what it is that I need to be clear on, so that I can then express what it is that I need. And then that creates a space for you to create and express what you need to express.
So do you think, in the years of working, and this is both business and athletes related, I have my own story around a business. I'll give you this example. So there's a business, two brothers work together, got to know them. And their comment was ultimately they make great partners because they're brothers. And they had the right to kick the shit out of each other. And I won't get into the real down and dirty description of how they could be as brothers, because at the end of the day, their family, they weren't going anywhere. And it always came down to being able to, I guess, argue in full honesty. And if they had to go out, and take it out in the parking lot, they could, and the other person wasn't going anywhere. So that's their story. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So when you think about partners, business partners who aren't related necessarily, and they're just one example. I'm not saying that's always the case. The point is that when you get a couple of business partners who aren't blood, who aren't brothers or sisters, for example, family in this case, there's, I think, a degree, a holding back sometimes of how you might interact. So my question is this, is that when you've got couples skating who are actually life partners, they're in a relationship, versus a couple who are just skating partners, do you see any difference in results? Like, is it better to be one or the other, do you think, or have you determined that?
That's a great question. I have not determined that, because I've had an Olympic and world champion who are not life partners, and I've had world champions that are life partners. So basically, it really comes down to aligning and understanding what each other's goals are, and then putting each other's needs ahead of the personal needs. Because when you have that partnership, whether you're a life couple or a non-life couple, the outcome is in this case a medal or a deal or something that you both are committed to fully, so that you're sometimes willing to put aside the emotional. Sometimes it feels like maybe rejection, or somebody's putting me down, or there's some sort of, I don't know, hidden agenda, but they put that aside for the bigger picture, which is the common goal. And what I love even about our relationship is that our common goal is always to have and live our best lives, and to do what we can, even when we fight. And that's what I've been able to bring to the ice dancers, is that I think our relationship is quite successful because we have that ability to put our personal needs aside at times and look to what is important for the relationship and what is important for the outcome that we're both trying to achieve. And I think when we get stuck, and whether maybe it's my clients get stuck in their own egos and their own needs, and it becomes bigger than the partnership, I think that's where things go off the rails.
Yeah, I've often found it interesting to note that when, as coaches, when we're chatting with couples, when we're meeting with people, and when we meet separately, we see the divergence of clarity, right? What is one person wanting versus the other person? And not just in the relationship, but actually we don't do relationship coaching. We do be who you are, and then together comes the relationship, and we might get into some communication, but often lots of those kind of conversations. But ultimately, I think about more recently over the past year with some of the couples that I've spoke with individually. I mean, amazing couples, love each other to death, do so much. But when you're actually having a conversation with them as individuals, because you're hearing both sides, you see the misalignment sometimes in the communication of what I really want and what I'm looking to achieve, and how do I communicate that, and how do I make that work. But rather than have the conversation, they're having the conversation in their head. And, it would be really, sometimes it's as simple as being able to express that, get past and through your fears and through what you think somebody's going to think about it, and say it out loud and talk it through. It's just an interesting dynamic, right? And but when you get clear yourself, it's easier to get clear as a couple, as a partner. That's what I guess I'm trying to say in all of that.
Well, there's that fear of rejection too when you're with the partner, that you have that level of intimacy and you say, what if I have the courage to say what it is that I really, 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 really want, and I get rejected, or I get laughed at, or I get minimized? And we have to go to that certain level of trust, knowing that the person that we're in relationship with, if it's a life partner, has our back just as much. And I think that's a level of emotional maturity and emotional and personal regulation that you and I have been able to get to over the years. And that's one of the things I think I'm excited about with Think Tank, for example, and what we got to in our last Think Tank, is that emotional maturity and regulation in relationship really elevates that conversation, so that you can say the things that you need to say without the fear of rejection or without the fear of being minimized. Because the truth is that if you're in partnership with somebody that you don't 100% love and trust, and know that you can, hand your heart over, or hand your goals and your dreams over to, and they're going to be protected, then maybe you're not with the right person. But again, that right person is always a reflection of you knowing and being clear on who you are and what you want. And that's what I think that the work that we're doing, whether it be with athletes or business owners, etc., is about really bringing that forward and understanding who you are, and understanding the value of what you bring to the partnership, and the fact that you can honor yourself without being selfish and without being in your ego, and being humble in the truth of, we don't do any of this life alone. And like I said earlier, life is a team sport. Sport is a team sport. Whether you're an individual figure skater, you have a full team around you. Ice dancers, full team around them. Hockey, every sport has a full team. Nobody does it alone, and neither do we do in relationship. So when we have that conversation around clarity equals velocity, and we want the speed of results, and that's actually one of the seminars that I'm doing coming up, is called the speed of results, is that when you understand how clear you need to be to get the result you want without all these like distractions and things that are going to get in the way, that velocity actually is empowering. It's really empowering. You start to see results sooner, and life just gets more fun.
So tell me, in your experience, when I think about, for example, over the years, working with so many business owners and real estate investors, and how many individuals I've had conversations with, and when I get into a conversation with them about where they're stuck for whatever reason, I will have a conversation, or I'll have a discussion with them about their significant other and where the alignment is. And I'm often surprised that I'm talking to somebody who is literally talking about millions of dollars worth of real estate, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of real estate, and their partner isn't aligned with them, as in, you go do that, I'm not interested, I don't want anything to do with it. And ultimately, they bump up against the stickiness of now having to make decisions without, and some, big financial decisions, without any alignment with their partner, without any communication. And as I'm thinking through this, when you consider how much work you do with couples, I mean, as coaches, that's kind of where we come in. That's where we get to be kind of leveraged, because we have this, we can step back, we can have conversations, we're not connected emotionally to it. My question is for you, is that as you're working with couples that you do, does somebody have to take the lead, or is it a mutual thing? So in other words, how does one person do something without including the other person? I mean, or how do they say, oh, I want to include you in this conversation? Part of what's driving this whole long-winded me getting clear about what the question is, or what the comment is bringing couples together to be in the same conversation was really big, because it opened up future conversations for them to have on their own. It created a context. and an environment. And we talked about family mission statements, and we talked about values and aligning with values, but they're all in the same conversation now. Whereas that individual who wants to be the leader on the real estate, but the other person doesn't want anything to do with it, it seems a little misconfigured, if you will.
Oh man, like I totally get it. And I saw that happen at our last think tank, is that to watch the couples really be able to express those types of scenarios. One is fully in on the family and raising the family and doing the thing and needing that support from the partner. And the other one's like, I need to bring the finances together and the business. And, so how do we, navigate that? And I do see the similarities in sport, but I also really got that there's times when the values are a little bit divergent in what's happening in families right now, as certainly our experience in our last think tank is that some of the women were focused on family and raising the family and making sure that everyone's looked after and organized and getting to all the activities and the food is made and the food, the meal prep is happening. And the partner was making sure that the bills were paid and making sure the businesses are running. So I don't think it's a divergence in values in that, but they're working within their own silos. And where I really find the magic is when you can help each other see what's going on in each other's values, in each other's realm. And that really creates a beautiful moment when they can step back and just see what the other person's doing to help run the family, for example. And the family is the business of our family, or the business of who we are and what our goals are, especially if some of them have 3, 4, 5 children at this point. And some of them were couples with no children, but had big goals in real estate and business. So it doesn't matter what the goals are. I think the most important thing is when you're bringing your lives together and you're bringing that energy together, is that each person has the opportunity and has the space to express what it is that they need, express where they're at, especially when life changes. We had one family where the kids were just 30 and 35 years old, and they were very much empty nesters and moving on. And the couple's sitting there looking at each other going, and I remember you 30 years ago, so each one of the situations was completely different. If I was to drill it down and to make one statement as far as what I'm seeing, especially, between the realms of ice dance and business and real estate, et cetera, is to honor yourself, honor your values, honor the changes in the life flow that's going on, honor yourself in the sense of, do you understand who you're being in that? Who you're being as a mom, who you're being as a business owner, who you're being as a dad, who you're being as a spouse. Because who you're being in the context of your life is what needs to be honored, so that you can bring that fully and not be worried about being judged or rejected or not honored for what it is that you're bringing. So that vulnerability, and I'm really finding it very powerful in the last couple of years, especially, is that I want to call it the PTSD, which is the post-pandemic stress disorder of what's happening in so many families, is that we don't know. And, do we have the courage to say what it is that we want next? Because maybe what we wanted 4 years ago isn't what we want today. That's why I was saying with Montreal Worlds, it was supposed to happen in 2020 and it happened in 2024. And there was teams that were not there anymore. They decided to retire, or they decided to move on, and some decided to stay, and some decided they broke up, and some decided to break up but stay together as an ice dance team. So honoring where you're at on the journey takes courage, and it takes humility, and it takes a moment to step back and go, okay, am I still the same person that, I always say that to you, is that I'm really glad that I'm not the same person that you married, because I probably wouldn't be married. We wouldn't be married if I was that same person. I was pretty shallow, pretty arrogant, full of myself.
But I think this comes back to a couple things that, really, if we're going to wrap a theme around this, because it did change from where we started, but ultimately, it is about communication. So in the world of significant others, in the world of partners, in the world of self-discovery and being aware. So in other words, intentionality around defining who we are, being our best selves, living our best lives, especially when it comes into the world of, professional development, personal development, is that communication with those around us so that they are in the same conversation. And that was really, part of it, even with the work that you do with your ice dancers as couples, or the work that we do within Think Tank. And the coaching that we do is really bringing people together to be in the same conversation, the same language, even having a similar thought process is into the body of work that they're doing in their own development, which means having awareness of being intentional in terms of who you are as a leader, being intentional of who you are as a significant other, a mom, a dad, whatever that might be. But it's intentionality, which always comes back to the conversations that we have in the whole context of mindset matters, which is, are you a growth mindset or are you a fixed mindset? In other words, are you this is just the way I am, or this is how I am today and I'm working on getting better and improving and growing to be the best version of myself always, and always checking in with where I'm at. Am I stepping up, being the best version of myself? And do I have a vision for what that best version of myself even is?
Ooh, that opens up a whole other can of worms, because I think about when I come back from a competition, for example, I could be in my pajamas for 2 days, and the people that we have around us that help us and help me get organized and help me clean and help me run the household and help us do that probably sometimes look at me and go, how is it that this is your best life? You've just been in your pajamas for 2 days. But I also know when I'm on stage or on the road for 8, 10 days in a row, it's 24/7. And when I come home, it's my safe place. And that's what I have to be able to express out loud, is that this is my safe place. And the people that I invite into my safe place, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be told that, you're not being your best self because you're still in your pajamas or you're sleeping and you're having your coffee at 9:05 when you should be really up at 9. So I think what happens is that we need to be responsible around how we take care of ourselves and how we bring the people around us to support us. When you think about the exercise we did that and think tank we do, it's called the circle of support. And we start to have the conversation about who we need to be in the center of our life and who do we have in the certain areas of our life, who is helping us in our performance self, who is helping us in our home life, who is helping us in our business, who is helping us in the practical day-to-day tick-tock of life, and then who is helping us and where are we showing up in our community to make a contribution. So that circle of support exercise is really important. And I do that with athletes every single year, because the people that are coming and going in our lives sometimes need to leave if they're not in alignment with our current set of values. And I think what, to your point, Hun, is that there's really the communication piece about knowing who you are and what you need, and not defending it and not feeling embarrassed that sometimes I need to sleep for a day or 2 days when I come home. And there was times where you would have a massage therapist at home for me to make sure that reintegration process into our life was easier. Because when you know that you're performing at your highest level and that you're living your best life, there is still a place where you need to know that when you come home, you're supported, and that you're not judged, and you're not having to be full on and redlining when you come home after something like, for example, the World Championships.
Well, I think that, goes back to understanding, and again, as a couple, understanding that what you need. And because I also, if we look at that whole context of, you're gone for 10 days, you're holding space for 10 days for literally dozens of athletes, but really hundreds of people overall. When I was doing a lot of live events where we would have hundreds of people in the audience, and I was there for a weekend and I had the team behind me, I'm holding space for 3-4 days. And then you need that rest. Like all of a sudden when that goes away, it's like, oh, okay. Oh, the game's over. Phew, that's done, right? You were in your performer self, holding space and supporting others. It was all energy going out, which is, of course, what we love to do. But if we as a couple didn't have a clear understanding of, something, I need some serious downtime. I need to shut my brain off. I need to shut my emotionality off a little bit. I need to just flop around in my pajamas. Then if we didn't have that understanding as a couple, that could really lead to some challenges. If you're coming home to kids, for example, and I'm just like, okay, about time you got home, and I dump the kids on you, then of course it's not going to be good, right? It's probably going to go off the rails. And so understanding what you need and that transition time from coming from a busy time back into just day-to-day life and giving you the space to do that came with a lot of communication over the years and understanding.
Yeah, it really did. And I think I have a lot of appreciation for that. And, even hearing you say it, I realized that because of our level of communication and our fight to communicate around that, we got to that. But I want to invite, if you're still listening, is to where do you take care of yourself? Do you have a chance in your life where you rest and you recharge? And, if you do come home from a weekend conference or something and you come to have to barrel ass right into the Monday and the kids and the meal prep and the driving and all that, or do you have a plan where you've got a bit of a community where you can reach out and ask for help and maybe carpool, et cetera? Is that, you have something right behind you on your left side. It says, own your need,
Mm-hmm.
Own your need. And that's what has been kind of our theme over the last, especially as we built the clarity equals velocity concept this year for 2024, is that we still have to own our need. And that's hard sometimes because I think sometimes, there's times where I think we should be mind readers. So you should know what I'm thinking and feeling, and you should read my mind and you should know what I need. But that's not true. That's actually really disrespectful. When you get to that level and you understand how disrespectful it is to think that the people around you are mind readers, it's hugely humbling. But to own our need can also be confusing and confused as being selfish. And I just want to invite anyone that's listening still is to say, when you own your need, it's actually really, really important and special to be able to express it to the people that are around you. Because if you don't, they don't know how to support you.
I'm going to bring this kind of home to roost or home to completion, but also circle back to where some of this conversation started. And that is that you created the environment, you and your team, and Patrick, Marie, and I am. And is it perfect? No. I think that's what you said. It's, is it perfect? No. But that is because when you go through change, when you shift, there is chaos and then there's clarity. There's chaos and disruption until you come back. And my point of this is that I can hear people saying right now, only because we've had many coaching clients over the years going, there's just no way for me to do that. I've got this business. I'm too busy. I'm in the middle of my career. I'm at the peak of it. I don't have time for this thing called, look after myself or have communication properly with my significant other. They just need to understand. And this is really something that's important to understand. It's not a switch that gets flipped. It is a progression in terms of, first, you have to realize that you want to flip that switch. Secondly, you have to change the trajectory. Thirdly, it's going to get tested. It's then going to get and feel like chaos is struck. And then you're going to come back to center, which is the vision that you originally set the trajectory for. And so, first off, you have to have, number one, the awareness that, okay, I'm out of sync. I'm not communicating well. I'm not getting my needs looked after because I'm not owning my needs. And that it is a process. It is not okay, today I'm this way, tomorrow I'm another way. Because the minute you do that, and that's perfect, do it. But ultimately, within 24 hours, you're going to get tested and go, oh, okay, it's like being on a diet. I'm committed to my diet. And then somebody shows up with donuts. Oh, okay, well, I'll be committed tomorrow. Right now, I want to enjoy the donuts. So that's kind of where I would want to quasi step off and wind this conversation down. But what is your wisdom as we bring it to an end?
No, life is short. Enjoy the donuts. No, it's true, man. Like, what you're saying is true. And I think what happens is the humility and the understanding that none of us are perfect. We're all in growth. We're all working through things. We're all in a world that, is unfamiliar for many now going forward, to going through some situations where I've had some people lose their jobs. I've had some people lose family members to strange deaths. And so I'm dealing with a lot of things that I've never had to deal with before. So I'm really being gentle with myself. And if I can invite anything, is to be gentle with yourself right now as you go through change, and understand that the clarity that you're seeking will actually lead to the speed and the velocity of what it is that you say you want. But take some time to reset, to rest, and to recharge if that's what you need to do right now, because it is exciting times coming forward. I'm optimistic and motivated to see what's going on and what's happening next. But don't step over when you're seeking clarity and we're seeking the velocity of life and being your best self, is that there is times where you need to recharge and to rest.
Beautiful. And Steffany, good to have you back. Great conversation. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for listening. And
that was fun. That was so fun.
Thanks. Bye now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. If you found value in the podcast, please take the time to rate and review and share with others. Share with your friends. As it is my goal to always improve and to provide the highest value for you, the listener. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions you'd like answered, please email me at ceo@reincanada.com. That's ceo@reincanada.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, Patrick out.